Hi, I'm Tori Nook, and I'm the founder and principal for Anchor Retail. We are a boutique real estate brokerage firm here in Cleveland and Columbus, Ohio. And I've been doing a monthly video series each month. I feature every Wednesday. I drop it in LinkedIn and Instagram and X. All my friends that are in the business of real estate and people who are women and men and people who work for me too, where we share insight on what's going on in our world and our business. We talk shop, we talk trials and tribulations. And my guest today is Jenn Quader. And Jenn is one of my new favorite people because we just met. But you are seriously like one of my favorites that I have met. I mean, you have such amazing energy, and it is you probably have to watch out for energy vampires because you have such light.
No energy vampires in commercial real estate. What?
I know, right?
You know what, Tori? I'll jump in and say I felt the same about you. I had the chance to meet Tori. I'm just kind of talking to your listeners, but also talking to you. We had the chance to meet at Globe Street Women of Influence in Colorado in July. And the thing I can tell you is I first saw you on stage and I thought on stage you were eloquent and graceful and really spoke about kind of the power behind the business that you've built, which made me, respect you as a women business owner. And then we stood in the lobby and we talked about the deep things. We talked about soul and God and family and like the real stuff. And that made me love you. So
Yeah,
so
really.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and that was a great conversation to end the night and the most one of the most fabulous conferences I've been to in a long time, which was Globe Street's Women of Influence. They have it every year in July. I think you could actually sign up now if you go to their website. So there's their plug. I highly recommend it.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you are a woman in commercial real estate, whether you're attorney or broker, title, whatever, leasing. It's an amazing bunch. And Jenn, you're the CEO of the Smart Agency, and Jenn has the luxury of living in beautiful Orange County, California, like Cleveland, Ohio, and she's living in paradise there. And she runs a very, very prestigious PR firm that's national, nationwide, and they only specialize in commercial real estate. And I found it interesting to speak with her because I have actually personally, I know this might be shocking to some people, but I do not use a PR agent. I only used a PR agent once who was local here when I launched my company, Anchor Retail, which was 9 years ago. I didn't really understand the details of PR and what they do and how it works. And, I thought maybe we could touch on how did you start this company? How did you even get involved in PR? Because just to give you a quick background to everyone, Jenn has her master's in fine arts in acting, correct?
Well, I started in acting. I did pivot.
Okay.
Good note though. My
Yeah.
my dad was very proud for this pivot. I
Okay.
started in acting and musical theater, and
Okay.
then I did end up pivoting, and I got my master's in fine arts in global communications. So it did land in business. But you are correct that I started on stage. I started with a professional acting career. I was on 2 national tours of Broadway musicals.
Mm,
So I like to sing and I like to
yeah.
dance. But what you asked is how did little old me then get into a commercial real estate, really kind of a communications consultancy firm, a PR consultancy firm? Um, and the answer is relationships. I like
Okay.
everything else in business, you it is not important to talk only to those who you think are going to help you. It's important to talk to everyone and learn and get to know them. So after I finished my graduate degree, I went to work for one of the big four, they call it, like the four largest PR agencies in the world. And it was called Hill and Knowlton. And I was working at that time on automotive PR accounts. So I was helping like Mazda and Ford Motor Company and Michelin and that kind of stuff. And I had been talking with different people about what I wanted, and I knew I always wanted to lead. I knew that I wanted a leadership position, and I it was kind of clear to me in that big behemoth of a PR agency that that was not going to be where I would get that. So I met someone who then invited me into an agency, which at the time was under a different name, and I went to work there in 2010, and I studied under it was a female owner. She had owned the company since 1994, and I studied under her, became her partner, really learned everything I could. So again, shout out to women mentors and women sponsors, because when you tell
Huge.
people what happens, they learn.
Right.
And then in 2018, I acquired the company from her.
Mhm.
So really, what I did was, frankly, Tori, what you did was a little harder, to be honest. You know, what you did was you took your contacts and you started a business from the like giving birth, right? Like I kind of adopted a child. I adopted a child that had already had a good amount of raising and really understood. And then my job is to see the vision forward and to understand within the bigger picture what we're trying to do. We're not just trying to promote people and things. That's PR for PR's sake. We're trying to help an industry that needs help. Commercial real estate needs reputational help. And so we're trying to help that at a grand scale.
Right. I mean, that's just like when I talked to Maria McCallie. I mean, real estate needs help even in big time in marketing. I mean, they need help pretty much in everything. I think what's great is you got the finance guys and the deal makers behind it. And then it's like that's kind of like where the buck stops. But I think what not I don't think I know just from seeing your client list is you now the smart guys, especially the ones who are raising capital who want to do even bigger projects and graduate into bigger deals than what they're already doing, work with you because you PR is who's going to get them out there, right? To get those investors, to get people to trust them, to not have some janky package, to have the great, interviews, and big magazines too, not just on podcasts, right? I mean, just really well accredited places where, you're not just paying for an article. I mean, what they're paying you for is because you have the context to get a real article done, right? and, and and whatnot. So
Yeah, yeah, and you're nailing it, because what you're talking about is earned media and credibility. And there's a
right.
big difference between placing an ad that says, "Hey,
Mhm.
my company's great. Invest in us, invest with us,"
Right.
and having a news source write about you. And so that's kind of the baseline. But then what you're also talking about, and and I appreciate it, because yeah, I think we have some amazing smart clients. What I think
Mhm.
is so smart about our clients is that they understand the need for consistency in storytelling. So if you I'll do it like this, story, because I know you're a mama, you have kiddos.
Yeah.
If you like never heard from your kid's school, like ever, unless there was a problem, what would you think about your kid's school?
I'm hoping they're doing a good job. I don't know.
And then if you only hear from them once every 3 years when they do something good, what are you
Yeah.
gonna think of them? You're not going to trust them. And so in the same way in the commercial real estate world, when we only crow about our accomplishments, when we only, pull in someone to help us just to tell the one story, or when we only pull in someone to help us when something goes bad, then we don't build a consistent credibility. If I use the example of your kid's school, you probably talk with your kid's school all the time. You understand who they are, you see them places, this is the analogy for like what we have to do in commercial real estate. We have to build relationships with the publics.
Right. And it's true because like even I send my kids to a private school, I better be getting what I'm paying for, which is communication, which is what people
Exactly,
are paying you for.
exactly, exactly.
Right? It's like
Well, and it puts you at ease, and it builds a sort of trust. And again, that's when we're doing business, right?
Mhm.
Like business is not just about who you like, right? That's not we like a lot of people. We like the way they look,
Right.
we like the way what they say.
Right.
Business is about who you trust. Business
Right.
is about
That's right.
who do I want to go into a relationship with. I was at
Mhm. That's right.
I was at PRIA last week. That's the Pension Real Estate Association.
Okay.
And it's a really great organization for those that are
Mhm.
working in institutional capital. And I
Okay.
liked it. This guy said, he said, when you're making a deal, you are deciding who you're going to get married to for the next 10 years.
Oh, believe me, I've been in horrible deals. So, unfortunately, with the same person, but I can't wait till they get sold. But again, it's like a wish list prayer to the angels and my God, to God out there. But yeah, no, I know. I mean, trust is everything. I mean, it's not about who you like because you go out or what their image seems to be. You've got to really actually know them and know other people work with them that you could call them to see what you think of them, right? Because if you're putting yourself out there, people are going to call and ask about you, right? So you want to make sure that if you're going to be out there, that
Yeah,
work that
it's
gets
it
back is what you want, right?
Yeah, and as commercial real estate people, we all know
Mm,
this because we do due diligence,
yeah,
right? Like
agree.
there's a due diligence
A
process
lot.
on every property.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
there's also due diligence on every consultant, every company. There is due diligence. So what we're doing when we are doing communications for a company is we are creating a line of due diligence that people can go and read about. What are the values of this company? What does leadership really believe in? Why are they making the moves they're making? Not just what are they doing, not just what did they close, who invested in the fund. Yeah, that stuff's going to get out, but what's the why behind it? There's a deeper need, and I would take us here, Tori, if it's cool with
Mhm.
you, which
Yeah,
is to
cool.
say,
Let's do it.
yeah, because we're in this world of AI and we're in this world of fake news and all the craziness.
Well, I was actually
There
gonna
is
get into that with you.
Let's do it.
Because
Take me
because
there. Take
I
me
I
there.
wanted to know because of the fact that you've been in the business from 2010, and remember, Instagram didn't come out till what? Around then, right? I mean, it was so baby new. I don't think I even got it till 2012. And so my question to you, with how things have changed between social media ramping up after you became a partner at the company to AI, how have things changed in PR for you?
Lightning fast,
And what are
constant
you
change.
doing that you didn't do before that you do now, right?
Great question. Really, really good question.
Mhm.
The answer is using more tools that we never used before. We are in social. Here's the difference. When I started, social was a cherry on the sundae. Some people might use it, some people might not. Most people did not. They didn't see the business
Right.
impact. Today, social media is the ice cream in the sundae. It's
Okay.
part of it. It's a whole nother scoop that goes with it. You cannot not have it. It is as important as your website. You know what I mean? It's just another tool. So adding on to that, now today's, I'd say it's cherries on top, but it's also sprinkles on the sundae because
Yeah.
you're going fast, is AI. What we are doing in AI is twofold. The first is research and play.
Okay.
When a new tool comes out, you need to be able to get in and play, and you have to play in a safe environment. So I like to say up front that as business people, you must put company policies in place that protect your clients. So you cannot play with confidential information. That's a caveat for that. But once you have scrubbed your data of personal things and you've made it vague enough, you still need to play with the tools to see what is it capable of. So we've done a lot of work with GPTs and with looking at how to find voice tonalities and things that can really help our clients and also deepen our research. We're also working, and we're not there yet, but we're working on a way to harness our own personal data, similar to what the big dogs have already done. You've seen the JLLs and the big
Mhm.
companies of the world do this, but harness their own data such that you can look back. I mean, we have
Mhm.
press materials and information on
Yeah.
clients back since 1994. We could look at all of this, this trend work of what has been said around developments, what's been said around leasing, what's been said around asset management, what have we seen in these prior cycles. So I think there's a lot of benefit for companies for how to use this to make them think better. I've heard people say AI is a wonderful cognitive thinking tool. And I think
Right.
that's what it is. And then finally, I would say we're certainly using it like everyone else to increase efficiencies.
Mhm.
We are looking at every touch point from our, customer relationship management systems to our project management systems to see where can automations flow in, where can we shore up time so that we have more time to listen and understand the business needs of the client because that's what's most important when things are changing this fast. Social
Right.
media is everywhere. There's a million things. Twitter's
Yeah.
now X, AI's everywhere. You need a steady hand that can talk to you about what do we look like in the market? What are we saying in the market? And how does that story continue to evolve?
Mhm. So my question to you is, do you handle social media then for your clients or do you set them up with somebody? Because again, so many companies, they really don't have social media. Like, I mean, the fact that they have a website's probably halfway miraculous, but I think in the past 10 years you've been forced to, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, social media is now like, or excuse me, your website is now like your location, like,
Yeah,
and
it's
like
more or
for
less
some
like Google location,
companies.
right?
Yeah. The answer is yes. We handle social media in-house. We don't just set people up and have them do it. We really handle it for them. A lot of that is because our clients are deal makers, are at a very high level. Our clients are investors at a high level, and frankly they don't have time to kind of get on and do that stuff, and it needs a level of engagement and a level of authenticity that's done by people who understand the business. It also really needs, and this is like my little, if I can nerd out for a minute,
That's okay.
when I studied branding, the nerd part of branding is this real consistency. It goes down to like making sure the brand colors are exactly right and the logo is as it should
Right.
be, and not, you know. But when it goes into storytelling, I think that it's the social component. There has to be a holistic look at what are we
Mhm,
saying across the organization. So if, for example, you job out your social to one person, but then you have your PR and another,
mhm.
then it is a higher inefficiency because we're not talking to each other. We're not coming from the same central command center. So there's more risk of not looking the same in both audiences, not having kind of a symbiotic relationship between your communications, which again, back to the core thing, it can rupture trust. We're looking to do is make sure that people trust and know us everywhere they meet us as a company.
How long do firms hire you on for then? Do they do
Um,
one-year contracts? Because if you're handling their social media, I mean, that's a big component.
Good question. The way I like to answer, I'll answer the way I like to answer it, and then I'll just tell you. Then I'll tell you the nitty gritty. The way I like to answer it is, we have clients that we've worked with for 20 years. I mean,
Okay,
most of our
okay,
clients are. We think of our clients as really long term.
okay.
When people sign up with us, I believe our terms right now are, it's a 6-month commitment, and then you always have a 3-month out. So the 6-month commitment is because it takes, but we've had people on a 30 or 60-day cancellation notice that we've
Mhm.
served for 15, 18, 20 years. And it's better to do it that way in our mind, as opposed to like making you sign on for a year, because
Mhm.
A, if for any reason anyone's not happy with a service, they don't
Right.
need to pay for a service that they're not,
Yeah,
that's not
right.
working for them,
Yeah.
right? But B, it allows us, I think more importantly, um, the word dynamic comes to mind, right? Like, how often do you hear commercial real estate is dynamic? And what we mean by that is it's changing all the flipping time. And so we need to be able to be pliable. So by keeping our terms a little more open, we can partner with people, and we all understand it is for the long term. But for example, if somebody came and said, and hey, we're doing a big PR thing and we're doing events and we're doing social, and they said, hey, we need to ramp it down. Well, okay, we can scope down a little on PR, we can scope down a little on social. So it allows us a little wiggle room.
Right. Interesting. So I'm gonna transition because I think it's fascinating that you did do a TED Talk. You're actually the only second person I know that's done a TED Talk that I personally know, which is wild. Isn't that crazy? Like
Cool.
like
I want to
I'm on
meet
the
the other
board.
person.
Yeah, I'm on the board of Providence House, which is an amazing not local nonprofit, and I've been on the board since 2017, and I love it, this organization, because it's a crisis nursery. And, and even helps women, children, or animals, but they don't help animals, just women and children. I'm all about it, especially locally too. And our CEO Natalie Leaks did one a couple years ago, and I was just curious because what I like is yours is about change, right? And navigating through uncertainty. How did you even get on this TED Talk in Paris? I'd like to hear this whole story.
Please, I'd be happy to. I'll tell you the best. Okay, so I'm going to tell it this way. A million years ago, when I was very young, I was in a pageant. And I grew up in North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina, really small town. And when you're in a pageant, they have you practice all these interview questions. And one of the questions was always, what will be the name of your autobiography? And growing up, I always thought, I'm going to call my autobiography Confidently Walking in the Wrong Direction. And it came to me, and it really came to me as first as a joke, which is to say, if you ever walk with me, Tori, if you and I are going to a business meeting and
Yeah.
we go in and we go up the elevator and we go have the meeting and we're like, man, that went really well. They're totally going to work with us. When we come off the elevator, I'm going to turn the wrong direction. Like it's going to happen. So it comes first from a place of like funny practicality.
Right.
But
I know
then, yeah, but then
because
it
we
built.
really don't know where we're walking, but you got to have confidence in what
No,
you're
but
doing.
you
You don't
gotta
know
have confidence. And so then that baked into a larger idea for me, which is that I started to understand, and I started to do this as I took on leadership, right? Like I take on the leadership of this company, like, yeah, I'll
right.
do that.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Leadership's tough. You know this, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
very I like to say people are our most unreliable resource. I mean,
Yeah.
they're a gift. They're a gift. They're a talent. They're wonderful. But every person has their own things. So I started to understand. Hey, you know what really trips me up as a leader is being afraid to make a decision because I might make the wrong one. And then I started to understand. Hey, how many decisions do we make that are right? Like they're the right decision. And then they kind of become wrong along the way. You know, how many things peter out and change? And what happens if we're not watching that change? A good example in business I'll give before I get into
Yeah.
like why I went to Paris, but a good example in business is like Kodak, right? Like Kodak was like the thing, but they
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
pay attention to what was happening. So that opened
Right.
that up. And then getting to the TEDx stage was really like a special thing because I had when I decided I wanted to go to graduate school, I really just wanted to go to Paris. I wanted to speak French. I wanted to live internationally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it happened to be that school, the American University of Paris, that was putting on a TEDx event. And it happened to be that their focus was resilience. And really, sometimes I'm a person of faith, and I do
Oh, yeah. Me
believe
too.
that yeah,
Which
fist bump on that
We know.
because you got to, right? But I
How are you
believe
gonna get
that you
through
are
life without it, right?
amen. Like there's, I mean, come on, thank you for the sunshine, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I think what happened then is that I was put in the right place at the right time in some ways that this came up. And it led to what is now feeling a lot more like my life's work. I think my life's work encompasses the smart agency,
Mhm.
and it encompasses this artistry and speaking work that is about how to how to allow disappointment, and how to reinvent yourself through it in a way that feels very real. So that's kind of where my heart is, and it certainly is impacted and driven by what we do at the Smart Agency. But that's what led me to the TEDx stage.
That's fascinating, and I think what's a really fascinating point that you made about change is people are scared of change, which I find fascinating because I feel like that's the biggest issue with people is they're very and the more stubborn they are, the more resistant they are to change, which keeps them stuck, right? And the thing is we're on this earth and things are changing constantly and you have to adapt to it. And again, going back to faith, put your hands in God and say, this is what I need. This is my fears, but you got to put it in a box and then, keep moving onwards. And I give people, I was thinking about this the other day. You'll hear sometimes people talk about people who failed at something, right? But let me tell you, like, it takes a lot of balls to get out there to start a business, right? It even takes guts to go get married. Some people don't even want to marry people, right? It takes guts to even have a kid, right? And, when you think of people who criticize, like, see people's kids, it's like, well, the fact that they even had the courage to go have them and raise them, but that's kind of where the buck stops. That's where you put your hands in faith too, because you can't control. That's another thing you can't do. People want to control things. You can't control things. Change and control are two things you better just let it go to God because it is not in your hands at all. And I find it fascinating that from all this, that then you started the Resiliency podcast. Which, it's so funny, like, the word resiliency, I have to admit, Jen, like, until I met you in July, it's like I know what the word means, I've heard of it, but I feel like it's been coming up more up and up, like, in conversations. Now I'm noticing it in things I'm reading, and you have a whole podcast structured about it. What led you to even start the podcast?
Thank you. It's such a I agree. I think the minute Resiliency, the podcast, came into my life, I started just seeing resilience everywhere and seeing the
Yeah.
through lines. What I have to give credit to my dear sweet husband. That's who I have
Mhm.
to give true credit to. He's the executive producer of the podcast. His name is Asif Quader. And Asif has a resilient story in his bones, in that he truly, actually, in his bones, in that he is a cancer survivor. And when I met him, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma about 4 months after I met him. We were still just dating. And during our early dating, it's interesting you say brave to get married, because it was quite brave
Well, I remember
because,
you told me that he had cancer and, obviously doesn't now, but I thought that
yeah.
was a
Well,
long
and in
journey
fact,
for you and
like,
him being so young.
yeah, like, and he had a bone marrow transplant. Like, it was a really deep and
Mhm.
interesting thing. So I say that to say he already came through a place where he was kind of, let's say, a living embodiment of of resiliency,
Yeah.
already in what he'd been through. And then he came with me to the TEDx stage. And I would say, so number one, there was kind of us of having it inherently. But then number two, and this I think is really important of anyone who is looking for their life's work and wants to find that purpose, we went and we listened to all the other TEDx speakers. So there was a rehearsal day, and it was myself and I believe they had chosen 9 or 10 others. Forgive me, I'm not going to remember the exact number,
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
each story was such a story of resilience. I'll actually tell you, since it's like news and coming out.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Murdaugh murders that they're doing a big
Yeah,
story
I
about?
watched, like, every 60 minutes. I watched the whole series, on
Yeah.
Netflix. Yeah, I mean, it is like, don't even tell me you're next door neighbors with them or something growing up.
No, no, in fact, no, in fact, the daughter of, so the man who did all of that, his
Yeah.
brother's daughter was
Mhm.
one of the TEDx speakers.
No way.
Yeah, like, seriously, this young, sweet gal. I mean, just gentle and sweet and amazing. And I'm literally listening to this girl talk about, experiencing this in her family. And that's just one story. There were so many. There's this one woman who went through literal, like really difficult, horrible things. And then there are other people who didn't go through horrible assault things, but who opened my eyes as far as what resilience could be. So what happened is we listened to these stories, and there was an energetic thing happening in America, and it still is,
Mhm.
where as a people, as a generation, people are like giving up hope. They're like, we're never going to be able to buy a house. We're never going to be able to do this. Oh, it's so terrible. And I think that the convergence of that, with us hearing all of that, and then the meeting of the great Dr. Kelly Culver. So Dr. Kelly Culver was one of the TEDx speakers. She has one of the first PhDs in strategic resilience in the world. She got it at
Really?
Paris School of Business.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, and so she's done a ton of research on that. So all that to say, it landed on Resiliency, the podcast, which we are about to enter year 3. And what I'd say to you in how it kind of connects to commercial real estate is, resilience at its baseline is a term that was built from our industry, right? It came from engineering. It came from testing and making sure that a bridge can withstand, anything that needs to happen, right? Like, there's an actual, but at the same time, when we apply it to our persona, it can help us in our leadership. It can help us in our families. It can help us in our relationships with ourselves and others. So I have found it to be a very, let's call it, a rich fountain from which to drink.
Yes. And who have you found, because I know you do your podcast, I've listened to it with Dr. Kelly Culver, and um I do love her work. I started after, I didn't even know about her till your podcast, actually, and then of course, you go in the deep dive and everything.
Always, right?
The rabbit hole. Have you found with the podcast, who are you reaching, right? I mean, you're reaching obviously beyond real estate world. Like, who are the people that are even age-wise or listening to you? And is it international? Is it more the US? I mean, because I think that I agree with you. I think our planet Earth goes in waves of how people think and feel. And I feel like a way a lot of people feel here, just because I spend so much time in Europe and I've lived over in London as well, I feel like it's kind of the same. Like, everyone's very upset politically. They're very upset about, the far left, far right. I mean, it's just getting, everything's more divided. People feel like there's no hope because of how we're just have inflation here. I mean, it's around the world. I mean, the cost of living is absolutely, totally bananas. Taxes are out of control. So I'm not to get on a tangent, but it's just but no, seriously, and, like, I actually I think I told you I may have told you this, I may not have, but, I just finished my first draft for my book called Intuitive Certainty.
Hey, Tori, no, you did not. Oh my
Oh, I did
gosh.
it? Oh,
Tell
okay.
tell the listeners that one more time. They need to hear it again. That's
Okay.
fabulous.
Well, I've followed my intuition most of my life, and I'm an extremely highly intuitive person. I was born that way. I didn't really realize my inborn powers, right? We all have intuition, but I think people don't even realize it's there, just like that they can also have the courage to be resilient. Not say, obviously it's not the same thing, but when you say shit's hitting the fan, I mean, not to swear, and you need to be resilient because we've all have had drama and trauma in our lives. And like you said, at different forms, different levels, right? It could be physical, mental, emotional, financial, right? There's all different, but no one's going through this world unscathed without a cross to bear. I mean, they just don't. Nobody has a perfect life where everything was wonderful and they never had one freaking problem. It's just not normal. One of the things I want to squash is the fact that, I think when people have jealousy or envy or they're not helping people, from being a mentor out there or being even, a better friend, parent, child, whatever. And I think it's because they don't understand what how everyone else lives. And it's not even their business, but I want to guarantee you something's going on with them just like something's been going on with you. And so why don't we treat everybody with respect here and realize we can share our stories like what you're doing with the TED Talk that you did, with the podcast that you're doing. I think what's nice, like even though there's so much awfulness going on, but there always will be awfulness going on. It just depends what form and what decade. Is that more people now than ever between social media, um, books, podcasts, there's so much help out there to realize I'm not the only one. Like, oh my God, if podcasts were out like back when I had my first kid, back when I first started the business, I would have probably been a way better person to realize like I'm not the only one standing in this chaos, right? Like there's resources and people where one story you can hear can change your mind. Like you don't even need to go to a therapist or something to
Yeah, well,
to recuperate from what you're going through. And I feel like going back to my first draft of the book I wrote, which is called Intuitive Certainty, which is coming out next December 11th. I pushed off the date because I've just got a lot of marketing and other things I want to get done before it comes out, right? Which is important to do. You don't release a book before you market it first, and that takes work. And what I want people to realize is once you go through the things you're going through, it's like really tapping in and listening to yourself and quit listening to society, quit listening to your family, quit listening to anyone and listen to your inside self. Cause I realized for years I kind of did, but didn't know what intuition was. That saved my ass on a lot of things. And then when I realized really what it was, when I hit a major rock bottom in my life after I had my second child, I didn't have postpartum depression, but the anxiety and stress just hit big time with me. And, I realized I had to start using it to get to the next step, to get to the next step, to get to the next step. And I think once you're solid within yourself, I think things not just in your life, but your family's life even changes for the better versus worse.
I
And I think
couldn't
it
agree
mixes with
more.
resiliency, right?
It mixes perfectly, and I was gonna say that actually because you mentioned, like, I'm not sure if intuitiveness really is the same. I think it actually is very much enmeshed
They're
together
enmeshed. They're
because
not the same. They're
yeah,
merged.
but
Yeah.
but they are because in order to be resilient, you must have a clear, as you say, as your book will explain to us December 11th, you must have clear intuitive certainty.
Right.
And it's interesting, I'll enmesh a little more to say as part of the TEDx talk, one of the
Hmm.
concepts I talked about is I call it the knowledge quotient. And
Oh,
quotient
mhm.
is a weird word. It just means percentage, basically. But it's the question I ask is what percentage of your knowledge, your belief, your trust are you taking from your external knowledge? And what percentage is coming from your internal knowledge? So it sounds like it could
Right.
pair nicely, like a
No,
little
but it's
amuse
true
bouche.
because your internal knowledge is really a lot of people think it's your brain, and that's what I talk about in the book. It's not logic. It's like what is really in your heart, your soul, your soul is your speaker, right? You're the what you want to silence a lot because sometimes it is hard to know the truth. And sometimes, like what you said, sometimes you pick a path, like if you're saying, I'm on the wrong path. But well, we don't know what path we're on until we really take it. So that's why we have to listen to ourselves. Like, I didn't just decide to write a book. Like I had it pop in my mind several times to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. It's kind of like people who are like, you know what? Like I had a guy here, he wanted to go move to Florida. Great. They came to him, they did it, they went. Like it's following like what your heart's saying. And you know what? When you do it, usually you're on the right path then, right? You're not doing look at
And
people
you're
who do things that they do only because their mom tells them or their dad, and they live a miserable life. Like maybe they didn't want to be a doctor. Like maybe they wanted to be in business or something instead, you know? And you want to be happy
exactly.
at the end of the day.
Well, and you're tapping into exactly what I want to say with confidently walking in the wrong direction, and you're tapping into it when you talk about the book, because what you said is like you've thought about this a lot, it's come into your head, but no one ever knows if they're walking in the right direction. And so what happens is you could be going along with your day, and you're busy, you run a very big company, you guys help a lot of national clients and retailers all over the world basically to get into your market. So one could say very easily, there could be a little voice that could start to go, well, why do you need to write a book? Isn't that too much for you? Don't you have too much? And that's the thing to get out. That's what you have to ignore. That's what you have to confidently walk through. What happens sometimes is when we're walking, we begin to feel unsteady. And that unsteadiness could just come from waking up and our body feels weird today. It could come from something our mom said. But something starts to make us feel unsteady. And if we sink into that unsteadiness, we will slow our walk down. We will stop looking around us. We'll start to go, well, what should, and we'll start wanting to retract. There's actually a physical thing I'm doing. Like we want to close. And I think the job is to stay open. There's a great, am I going to remember? Michael Singer is his name. Michael Singer, a great book called The Untethered Journey.
Oh
And
yeah,
it
I've
talks
heard of it.
exactly, yeah, it's fantastic. It talks exactly about this ability to stay open. And I think this comes down to business, this comes down to family, this comes down to soul and relationships. It is, if you want to achieve something like writing a book, like doing, like running a company, you have to stay open to it even when fear is present,
Mhm.
even when you are doubt, like little self-doubt, little things come in. So I think what you're saying with your idea of intuitive certainty is really brilliant, Tori, and the market needs it. The market needs more of how to achieve that intuitive certainty, because that's the through line. That's what gets you into the meeting where the next decision is made, you
Right.
know?
Exactly, exactly, and you know what clients to take on, which ones not. Don't get me wrong, I mean, if you don't feel like settling into yourself and listening, you're gonna go in one direction and maybe it won't be good, but I think usually when there's super red flags, whether they're bad red flags or a good, green flag, like it's easier to tap in and even meditate for 5 minutes a day on something, even if you're uncertain, to get the answer. And I think they teach this in, look at the Vedics, in Eastern religions more so. And I feel like the West doesn't have it and they've lost it. They're looking for other people to control the marionette strings, right? And they're, you know, wherever they're not to I mean, look, I'm like I said, I'm a woman of faith, but I mean, some people do let the church tell them what to do, or their
Sure.
mom, or their dad, or their husband, or their wife. And it's like, well, it's nice to hear people's opinions, but it doesn't mean like they're not God. Like God's in you. Like that's where we go back to your heart and your intuition. You know, you got to
Tori,
think.
say that again. They're not God. God is in you. Yes.
I mean, he
Yes.
created you, so you're a piece of him, or a piece of him, or whoever, whatever. Yeah.
That's the message. That's
Hmm.
the clearest message that there is, because
Yeah.
God is in each of us. And
Yeah.
by accepting that and knowing that,
Hmm.
it allows us to take that next step and to have the bravery. And it gives us the foundation that we need. And it also, here's the other thing I think it gives us, is it gives us a common respect. I believe a lot in the interconnectivity of people. You talked about, people from Asia, from Europe, the eastern side
Yeah.
of the world to the western side of the world. There is something we all have in common, and that is that God lives in every single being. I mean, that is just
Exactly.
that's what happens. And
Mhm.
so I think when we can find those place of overlap, it
Right.
allows us to seek the next solution. And you talked a little earlier, Toria, just about some of the things that plague our entire world. A lot of
Mhm.
doubt, a lot of anger, a lot of war, a lot of, and
Mhm.
I'm not someone sitting here saying like I know how to fix it. No, I absolutely do not. But
No.
I can tell you that when Mother Teresa was asked if she would go and protest against a war, she said, "No, I do not fight against war. I fight for peace."
Right,
And I think
exactly.
if we fight for peace, if we fight for ourselves, if we look for that soul connection, we're talking about deep things, but it all comes back to like, how do we run our business? How do we get up every day and kiss our kids on the head and know like, hey, I'm doing the right thing? We do that by staying in tune.
Exactly. And I think all this comes, full circle to being a whole person in running your business. And I think that's part of also being a leader is teaching resiliency, teaching trusting your gut, right? Don't be insecure. like roll with it. And I think the thing is too, it's like good attached to mentors. And I always say where you work is everything because you don't want to be, I've worked for people who are fabulous master manipulator talkers, but there's like no action, right? Like you want to be with people where you see their action. It's not like their words will at least train you to get to the next level, right? Where you
Yeah,
want to
well, and you wanna work for people who are trying. You wanna work for people who are actually like, I don't
and
wanna
haven't
work for
given
the
up.
dude. Yeah, I don't wanna work for the we'll call it the dude who climbed the mountain once and is still sitting at the top. No,
Right.
thanks. I'd like to work for the guy who's climbing like his 10th, his 11th, or the work for the gal who's climbing her 30th. I
Right.
like that's what I want. And when I think about like your company, Tori, I think that's what you're doing is you're building a place where not only are you working operationally to try to bring in the very best talent and run things in a way where your clients get the best, you're also pushing the envelope, having conversations like this out on your social, opening yourself up. I think that's the kind of leader you're looking for. Is we're looking for leaders, male, female, any gender, whatever they are.
Whatever.
We don't care.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
looking
Right.
just for leaders who are out there and who are willing to share what they're doing and who are going to keep climbing. For leaders who are not willing to say, oh, yeah, we already did that. And so that's where we stop. Life continues to grow and move and change. And those who welcome it are going to be, we're all going to have the party at the top of the mountain together. That's how that's going to work.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to end on that note. I love it, Jen.
Yeah, climb that mountain, Tori. Well, I'm excited about your book. That's what I'm most
Yeah.
excited about. That
Yeah, I'm
excites me.
excited too. I think it'll be fantastic for anyone, really. It's not just women, I think anybody, right?
I love it.
um, so why don't you tell everyone where they can find you between your business and your podcast?
Absolutely. So you can find me first. You can find me online at Jenn Quader,
Mhm.
JennQuader. I'm on all of the socials. On top of that, you can find me at thesmartagency.com. There's only one of us, so we are thesmartagency.com. And then you can also look us up on Resiliency with a Y, resiliencythepodcast.com. We're on all Spotify and Amazon and iTunes and all of that stuff. So give us a Google or give us a chat GPT and find us. But yeah, we'd love to have more friends in the resilience community. That is something we're always looking for.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jen. I
Thanks, Tori.
appreciate
What a
it.
pleasure. Have a beautiful day. Thanks
You
for
too.
everyone.